If there is a place on earth that immediately evokes a sense of mystery, it must be Tibet. On the roof of the world, where the Himalayas stretch majestically with snow-capped peaks year-round and ancient monasteries loom in the mist, Tibet appears like another realm. People say, just set foot on that land and you will feel your pace slow, your breath settle, and your mind open to an infinite expanse. The first images of Tibet are often the deep blue sky, boundless fields of white snow, and bright red temple roofs nestled among rugged mountains. In the morning, bells from Sera or Drepung monasteries ring down into the valleys, blending with the resonant chanting of hundreds of monks. In the afternoon, the golden sunset bathes the walls of the Potala Palace, once the residence and seat of leadership of successive Dalai Lamas. In those moments, time seems to stand still so that only the grandeur of nature and the sacredness of spirit remain. Tibet's mystery does not arise merely from its treacherous terrain, nor only from massive mountaintop architecture or dazzling rituals filled with drums, horns, and colorful masked dances. The true enigma lies in why, in such a harsh land, Buddhism not only took root but flourished into a unique tradition, at once profound in philosophy, rich in ritual, and deeply imbued with compassion and wisdom. What made Tibet the cradle of the Vajrayana, a spiritual path distinct yet continuous with the core of Buddhism? Perhaps the answer lies in a rare convergence of people, nature, and spirituality. Geographically, Tibet is set apart from the rest of the world by towering mountain ranges. This isolation allowed its culture to be preserved and to develop along its own path. In terms of human life, Tibetans live in a severe environment, constantly confronting death, illness, and natural disasters. In such conditions, spiritual need is not a distant belief but a practical refuge for daily life. Historically, when Buddhism came from India, it encountered the indigenous Bon faith, brimming with deities and ritual, and the two harmonized and transformed one another, forming a spiritual stream both profound and layered with symbols. Tibet, therefore, is not simply an exotic land in the eyes of distant visitors. It is living proof of the Dharma's power. Wherever it goes, Buddhism can adapt skillfully to conditions and bloom into forms suited to that land. Like water that becomes round in a round vessel and square in a square one, the compassion and wisdom of Buddhism, when flowing onto the Tibetan plateau, don the resplendent robes of the Vajrayana. For practitioners, to look toward Tibet is not merely to behold a mysterious picture. It is a reminder that in our very lives we too dwell among towering mountains of greed, anger, and delusion, and blizzards of worry and affliction. If Tibetans can find refuge in the Dharma amid harsh nature, then we can also find that refuge in our noisy cities, within each mindful breath. The mystery the world senses in Tibet is not something alien. It is the reflection of a life steeped in spirituality. When we see a mandala made from millions of grains of sand and then swept away, we are astonished by its seeming magic. Yet it is precisely a lesson on impermanence, one anyone can learn by simply watching a leaf fall in the garden. When we hear the deep drums echo like rolling thunder, we imagine a secret rite. In truth, it is a reminder of the power of wakefulness, that wisdom can tear through ignorance like thunder rending the night. Thus, Tibet is like a magnifying mirror that lets the world see more clearly the values Buddhism has always contained. Western visitors may first be captivated by the vivid colors, but gradually they realize that behind those enigmatic rites lies a simple core: live mindfully, live compassionately, live in harmony with the cosmos. Eastern observers, too, recognize the connection. Though forms differ, the spirit is one. Transcend suffering and return to peace. So when we ask what makes Buddhism in Tibet so special, the answer is likely that it calls us back to what already lies within our own hearts. The specialness is not only in the mantras, mandalas, or masked dances, but in their ability to awaken in us a longing to live true to the stillness of our original mind. Tibet becomes mysterious, not because it is far away, but because it illumines something close at hand that we often forget. Wakefulness is present in every breath, every step, every moment. As we set out to understand Tibetan Buddhism, we are in fact embarking on a spiritual journey of our own. The snowy Himalayas out there can symbolize life's challenges. The monastery veiled in clouds can be the image of the serene mind we long for. And the bell that rings every dawn can remind us that wakefulness is nowhere else but in this very instant. In the current of mindfulness, Tibet is not merely a geographical region. It is a metaphor reminding us that amid a turbulent world, we can still find a monastery within our own hearts. There, by simply listening to the breath and laying down our burdens, we can touch the peace that is already ours. The journey to explore Tibetan Buddhism is therefore not only a venture into a mysterious culture, but a return to oneself. Behind the enchantment of the Himalayas, behind the horns and drums, is an invitation. Come home, live wakefully, and let compassion and wisdom lead the way. Before the monastery bells resounded, before brilliant mandalas were spread across the ground, and before the presence of the lamas, Tibet was a land suffused with ancient indigenous beliefs. Its people lived among perilous mountains and unending blizzards, constantly facing the fragility of life. In that harshness, they created a system of faith to explain the world, to find support, and to seek safety. That faith is called Bon. Bon views the world as a cosmos teeming with invisible forces. From high mountains, valleys, and rivers to winds and snowfall, everything has a spirit and a power. Every natural phenomenon is the dwelling place of gods or demons. People believed that the safety of their lives depended on whether they could please their protective deities. If the deities were pleased, the harvests were abundant, the livestock healthy, and children were born safely. But if the deities were angered, calamities struck, epidemics, blizzards, and crop failures. In this view, the world is not neutral. It is a battlefield of opposing forces, good and evil, light and darkness, gods and spirits. Small and vulnerable, human beings are caught in between, constantly negotiating, offering rights, and placating. To communicate with that unseen realm, people needed Bon shamans. They were those who knew how to use drums, horns, charms, and dances to open a passage into the world of spirits. On winter nights when snow lay thick, villagers gathered in wooden houses where the flickering firelight danced upon the shaman's face. He beat the drum in steady rhythms, blew the long horn that echoed like mountain winds, chanted mantras, and traced mysterious symbols with his hands. The whole community believed that through such rites, deities would be invited in, malevolent forces subdued, and life made safer. The sound of drums and horns in the Bon tradition is perhaps the most ancient resonance on this plateau. They are not merely instruments, but bridges between humans and the cosmos, the visible and the invisible. Seen through the lens of mindfulness, a simple truth appears. Wherever we are, human beings yearn to rely on something greater than themselves. Amid harsh nature, ancient Tibetans felt their fragility and turned to the gods. And we today, amid work pressures, worries, money, and sudden illness, also long for a refuge, a place to entrust our faith. The difference may be only in form. Tibetans use drums, horns, and charms. We may use religious rituals, or even ordinary habits, a protective talisman, a prayer, a bracelet on the wrist. But the root is the same. People need a point of support to weather uncertainty. Bon met that spiritual need, at least in the beginning. It helped people feel they were not alone, that protective deities watched over them. It taught them rituals and gave them a language to converse with fear. Yet Bon also confined people within an obsession. If every phenomenon is decided by deities, then one's only recourse is offering and supplication. It becomes hard to perceive the power within one's own heart, hard to recognize an innate capacity for transformation. Precisely here we can see why, when the Dharma arrived in Tibet, it blew in like a fresh wind. It did not deny the deities, but it pointed to another path, turning inward to recognize the mind's original purity. Looking back at Bon, we might ask, in modern life, what are we offering to? Are we also devoting our energy to invisible deities? Perhaps it is the god of work when we sacrifice our health to satisfy it. Perhaps the god of fame when we ceaselessly compare and compete. Perhaps the god of money when every decision is ruled by profit. Just as ancient Tibetans believed a storm was the wrath of spirits, We too may believe our anxieties and pressures are solely caused by externals. And we busy ourselves with offerings, working through meals and sleep, hoarding possessions, chasing social standards. Yet in the end, we remain ill at ease. The lesson from ancient Tibet is the need for a true spiritual refuge, not merely outward supplication. This is why, when the Dharma came, it offered a new way of seeing. Peace does not come only from appeasing deities, but from understanding and transforming our own minds. Mindfulness teaches that instead of begging deities to still the storm, we return to the breath and recognize the storm within. Instead of making offerings to dispel fear, we sit down to listen to it and embrace it with understanding. When we can do this, we realize we ourselves are the shamans of our own lives. Our drums, horns, and charms are our breath, our steps, and our moment-to-moment wakefulness. Bon was the first soil that nourished the Tibetan people's spiritual needs. But that soil longed for a new seed, one that could take people beyond supplication and beyond fear. Then, from the south along the Indian route, the seed arrived, the seed of the Dharma. From there, the true journey of Tibetan Buddhism began. In Tibetan history, the 7th century is considered a crucial milestone. It marks the first formal appearance of the Dharma on the snowy plateau. The renowned king of this era was Songtsen Gampo. He was not only a brilliant conqueror, but also a far-sighted builder of culture. In expanding his realm and shaping his nation, he married 2 princesses, one from Nepal and one from China. It was they who brought with them Buddha images, scriptures, and the first seeds of the Dharma to this frigid land. The image of a small Buddha statue being carried across the Himalayas, braving countless perils to reach Lhasa, evokes a sacred feeling. It was not merely a political wedding gift, but a spiritual offering with enduring vitality. Tibetans, upon seeing the statue, might not yet have grasped the doctrines, but they sensed the peace and gentleness in the meditative posture and compassionate smile of the Buddha. In that moment, the first seeds touched their hearts like a cool breeze sweeping through a winter storm. We can picture Tibet then as a parched field yearning for rain. The people were familiar with Bon, with drums and horns and supplicating rites. They had faith, but lacked a deep path back to themselves. When the seeds of the Dharma were sown, they could not sprout at once. Like any seed placed in the earth, time, sun and rain, and care were needed. So it was in Tibet. Those seeds had to await later generations and great teachers to truly take root and become trees. Yet that initial moment was indispensable. In mindfulness, we speak of conditions. Everything requires sufficient conditions to come to fruition. So it was with Buddhism's arrival in Tibet. Without the condition of King Songtsen Gampo marrying princesses from lands already acquainted with the Dharma, without the condition of sacred statues being brought along, Buddhism might not have taken root here at that time. This suggests a lesson. Wherever we sow the Dharma, conditions and support are needed. We can see such seeds in everyday life. A verse we happen to read in a book, a brief Dharma talk we hear, a friend quietly reminding us, take a deep breath. All can be seeds. At first they seem tiny, so small we hardly notice any change. But over time, if we tend them, they grow and may transform an entire life. Some people recount that their beginning with the Dharma was just a brief phrase or a chance meeting with a monk. They were indifferent then, but years later, in the face of suffering, that old seed sprouted into comfort. The story of the Dharma's arrival in Tibet is therefore not merely something distant. It is also a mirror for us. It reminds us that every kind word, every wholesome deed, every moment of planting conditions can become a precious seed in someone's heart. Imagine a Buddha statue sitting quietly in the palace of a Tibetan king. Outside are cold winds and falling snow. Inside are the wavering flames of oil lamps and the shadows of people bowing in prostration. The scene may be simple, yet from it a spiritual tradition of thousands of years was opened. From a small statue, from a scripture carried along, the Tibetan people gradually approached new values: compassion, wisdom, impermanence, dependent origination. In mindfulness practice, we are also advised to view each day as a plot of land. Every thought, every word, every action is a seed we sow there. If we plant seeds of anger and anxiety, the soil of the heart will grow heavy. If we plant seeds of understanding and love, the soil of the heart will be filled with peace. The Dharma's coming to Tibet was a great sowing for an entire people. In each person's life, we can do the same for ourselves and those around us. Sometimes we do not need to do anything grand. Just a smile, a gentle inquiry, a reminder to breathe slowly. That too is sowing. And perhaps that seed will sprout when the other person needs it most, just as the seeds of the Dharma lay quietly in Tibet for a long time before flourishing under later kings and masters. Therefore, looking back at the story of the 7th century, we can smile. A Buddha statue accompanying a princess, a scripture accompanying a marriage. Who could have imagined that from this an entire nation would change? That is the miracle of sowing and also the reminder for us today. Do not underestimate small seeds. They can be the beginning of an entire spiritual forest in the future. Tibet received those seeds with all its favorable conditions. And we, in daily life, can also learn to receive. When we open our hearts and allow a verse, a breath, a smile to enter, we open the door to a journey of transformation. And perhaps one day, when we meet suffering again, we will remember the old seed and smile, realizing we already have a place of refuge. In Tibetan history, the 8th century was the decisive period. The Dharma seeds from the previous century were still small and had not yet taken deep root, but now they were given a greater opportunity. The person who opened that door was King Chisong Dessen, an enlightened ruler with far-reaching vision. He not only wanted to build Tibet into a powerful nation in politics and the military, but also wished for a firm spiritual foundation for his country. In that vision, he understood that Buddhism could become an important spiritual force. Therefore, he invited great scholars from India to Tibet. Among them, 2 figures stood out: Tichho, Shantarita, and Linhoa Sin, Padmasambhava, reverently called Guru Rinch by Tibetans. Tichho was a great and erudite scholar, well-versed in the philosophies of Madhyamaka and Yogacara, and capable of teaching precepts, logic, and the profound reasoning systems of the Mahayana. He brought Tibet a foundation of wisdom, reasoning, and the rigor of moral discipline. But the problem was that Tibetans at that time were accustomed to the colorful mysteries, deities, and rituals of the Bon tradition. A dry system of reasoning, however profound, still struggled to touch their hearts. At that moment, the appearance of Linhoa Sin became the turning point. Legend says that Linhoa Sin had the ability to subdue demons and restrain deities, even compelling the gods of the Bon religion to vow to transform and become protectors of the Dharma. He did not totally deny indigenous beliefs, nor did he regard them as enemies to be destroyed. Instead, he used his wisdom and spiritual attainment to win over and transform them. This made Tibetans feel that Buddhism had not come to negate, but to continue and elevate their existing faith. It was a skillful approach, flexible yet powerful, psychologically persuasive, and genuinely edifying. Say Monastery, the first Buddhist monastery of Tibet, was built during this period under the guidance of Tichho and Linhoa Sin. It was not only an architectural work modeled after Indian monasteries, but also a symbol of union. The lofty philosophy of the Mahayana was combined with rituals and symbols familiar to the locals. From there, Buddhism was no longer a foreign religion, but gradually became part of Tibetan life. Seen with mindful eyes, we find an important lesson. To bring the Dharma into life, we cannot merely impose lofty theories, nor can we completely deny existing beliefs. We must learn to listen and to transform, so that new seeds can be planted upon old soil. Just as Linhoa Sin did not annihilate all Bon deities, but turned them into Dharmapalas standing on the side of the Dharma, we can also learn to transform energies within ourselves. In daily life, we often have our own indigenous beliefs within the mind. These are long-standing habits, deep-rooted convictions, and tendencies cultivated since childhood. For example, some believe that happiness comes only with great wealth. Some believe they have value only when others recognize them. Some believe they are inherently flawed and cannot change. Such beliefs are like deities within, governing our actions and emotions. If we try only to deny and suppress them, they resist and grow stronger. But if we can look deeply, listen, and gently transform, old beliefs can become new driving forces. For instance, if we are often haunted by anger, instead of hating it and trying to block it, we can look into it as Linhoa Sin looked upon the Bon deities. We invite anger into the space of mindfulness, breathe with it, and see the suffering behind it. When we understand, anger can become a protective energy, reminding us to set boundaries and to care for ourselves. Thus, the deity within us is transformed into a protector. Lin Hoa Sin is therefore not only a historical figure, but also a symbol of the capacity for transformation within each of us. He reminds us that we need not reject the past or negate what once supported us. We can learn to receive it and raise it to a higher level. The path of practice is not erasure, but transformation. Looking back at this story, we understand that the success of Tibetan Buddhism came not only from profound philosophy or dazzling rituals, but from skillful integration. This too is a mirror for mindful living today. In modern life, we encounter all kinds of beliefs, ideologies, and convictions. There will be moments of conflict and difficulty in acceptance. But if we follow the spirit of Lin Hoa Sin, listening, understanding, and transforming, we will find a path of harmony without exclusion. In that harmony, seeds of wisdom and compassion can truly sprout. In the history of Tibetan Buddhism, there is an event regarded as a turning point, not only for this land, but also for the broader development of Buddhism among humankind. It was the translation of the scriptures. When King Chisun Desen invited Thich Ho and Lin Hoa Sin to Tibet, he did not only wish to build the first monastery, Sam, but also to establish a long-term, solid foundation for the Dharma. And that foundation had to begin with language. Same monastery was begun at the end of the 8th century, becoming the first Buddhist monastery on the plateau. It is said that Same was not only a place of practice and study, but also the center of a great movement to translate scriptures from Sanskrit into Tibetan. Imagine this scene. In a frigid land, hundreds of translators, scholars, and monks worked without rest. They sat before palm leaf manuscripts written in Sanskrit, patiently searching for corresponding words in Tibetan, recording them, and revising each sentence and each word. This work did not take place in a day or a month, but stretched across centuries and many generations. The result was a vast treasury of the Tripitaka in the Tibetan language. This was not merely a translation, but a monumental cultural enterprise. To translate, they needed not only to understand language, but also philosophy and doctrine, and to create new terms to express concepts that had never existed in Tibetan. It can be said that thanks to this translation effort, Buddhism truly put down deep roots in Tibet, instead of remaining merely something foreign. Without Sami, without the tireless dedication of the translators, Buddhism might have remained only a faith of the aristocracy. But because the scriptures were translated, the people could read, study, and hear teachings in their own language. From there, the Dharma became the breath of an entire people, not just of a royal court. This is vivid proof that for the Dharma to live long, it must be placed on the foundation of local language and culture. Seen from the vantage point of mindfulness practice, we find a clear lesson. To understand the teachings deeply, we must start from language, start from the foundation. Often we crave lofty concepts and philosophical terms. But if we do not truly grasp the basic meaning and do not master the foundation, such understanding is only a shell. The Tibetans did not choose the path of temporary learning in Sanskrit. They were determined to make the teachings their own tongue. In daily life, we can see the parallel. If we merely memorize a few verses in Chinese or Sanskrit without understanding, that is only form. But if we are willing to translate, to ponder, to find ways to bring them into the language of everyday life, then the teachings truly live in us. For example, we read, "Form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form." If we leave it only in its sonorous cadence, it may feel mysterious. But when we render it into simple words like, "All phenomena are impermanent and have no fixed self-nature," we begin to see its value. The translation of scriptures in Tibet reminds us that each person is also a translator for themselves. We need to translate the teachings from the language of scripture into the language of life. We need to translate compassion into concrete actions like a smile or attentive listening. We need to translate mindfulness into each breath and each step. Otherwise, the teachings remain on the page and cannot touch life. Another interesting point is that the work of translation is never finished. In Tibet, that endeavor lasted for hundreds of years, and to this day scholars continue to edit and supplement it. In practice as well, the work of translating the teachings into life never ends. Each day we learn new ways to breathe mindfully, to relate to loved ones, to face suffering. Each day we revise our practice, making it clearer and closer to life. The image of Sami Monastery, where oil lamps burned through the night, where the scratch of pens sounded across page after page, where translators labored to find the right words, can evoke a beautiful association for us. It is a symbol of patience. To build a spiritual tradition, we cannot be hasty. We must proceed step by step, word by word, line by line. Likewise, to build a mindful life, we cannot expect it in a day or two. We need patience with ourselves, breath by breath, step by step, smile by smile. Thanks to that translation endeavor, Tibet gained a treasury for future generations to rely upon. And thanks to that patience, we today can see that Tibetan Buddhism is not a fleeting faith, but a deep current lasting more than a millennium. It also reminds us that every solid thing begins with a foundation. To have fruit, we must begin with seeds and fertile soil. To have a life of peace, we must begin with language, with how we name and clearly understand what is happening in our own minds. In Buddhist history, when the great traditions are mentioned, people often speak of three streams: Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. If Theravada preserves the original spirit from the time of the historical Buddha, and Mahayana broadens the Bodhisattva path to liberate all beings, then Vajrayana appears as a distinctive branch, swifter, more direct, and also more mysterious. It was in Tibet that Vajrayana became the principal stream, clothing Buddhism with a resplendent robe of ritual, symbolism, and powerful practices. People often liken Theravada to a mountain footpath, slow but sure, Mahayana to a wide avenue with many vehicles and many turns where anyone can find a place, and Vajrayana to a cable car straight to the summit, ascending quickly and steeply but with greater risks. The spirit of Vajrayana is that right in this very life, in each moment, if the practitioner has sufficient conditions and proper guidance, realization is possible. The most visible distinctive features are the systems of mantra, mandala, subtle energies, and visualization. Mantras are not merely prayerful sounds, but vibrations that lead the mind into concentration, helping to awaken innate Buddha nature. Mandalas are not merely multicolored circles, but maps of consciousness, images of the cosmos within which the practitioner contemplates to recognize their own true nature. Channels and chakras are not merely esoteric medical notions, but ways for practitioners to regulate the body-mind's energies, returning the mind to clarity. Visualization is not mere imagination, but taking the form of a Buddha to break habitual clinging to self and to awaken inherent enlightened qualities. Seen with the eyes of mindfulness practice, we recognize something crucial. Vajrayana does not encourage avoidance of greed, anger, and delusion, but seeks to transform them. While many traditions teach distancing from afflictions, Vajrayana teaches that afflictions themselves can become the raw material of wisdom if we know how to use them. Fire can burn everything, but if we know how to cook, it also gives us meals that sustain life. For example, sexual energy is often seen as an obstacle in practice. In Vajrayana, it can be transformed into the power of union, helping the practitioner abide in meditation. The energy of anger, if allowed to erupt, is destructive, but if it is visualized as the fire of wisdom, it can burn away ignorance. Craving, if uncontrolled, drowns us, but with correct contemplation, it can become the very drive that helps us see attachment clearly and let go. Of course, this path is not easy and can be very dangerous without a guiding teacher. That is why the Tibetan tradition places great emphasis on the relationship with the Lama, the direct master. Yet precisely because of this intensity, Vajrayana carries a special allure. It teaches that nothing needs to be rejected. Everything, including craving, anger, and delusion, can become a gateway to enlightenment if we know how to look deeply. In modern life, we can also learn this spirit. We often try to avoid uncomfortable emotions such as anger, sadness, jealousy, and anxiety, but the more we avoid them, the larger they grow. Practicing in the spirit of Vajrayana, we can sit down, breathe, and look straight at those emotions. We realize that behind anger lies a need to be understood. Behind sadness lies a longing to be loved. Behind jealousy lies a desire for recognition. Seeing in this way, we are no longer dominated by them. Instead, we transform them into material for understanding ourselves and loving others more. Imagine that when we recite a mantra, we are not merely repeating a sound. We are pouring our heart into it so that each syllable awakens mindfulness within us. When we contemplate a mandala, we are not merely gazing at a picture. We are looking at the very map of our own mind. When we breathe deeply and are aware of the air moving in and out, we are also practicing a facet of channels and chakras. And when we visualize ourselves as the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, we are not indulging in fantasy. We are reminding ourselves that compassion can radiate from this very heart. Vajrayana is therefore both mysterious and familiar. It teaches that nothing in life is wasted. Every energy, every experience, every emotion can become a path if we use it with mindfulness. This is also today's reminder. Instead of fear and avoidance, let us learn transformation. What we once saw as obstacles may turn out to be gateways to wisdom. In the development of Tibetan Buddhism, there is one aspect that leaves first-time visitors astonished. It is the system of rich, radiant symbols saturated with spirituality. People are often overwhelmed upon entering a Tibetan monastery. Colorful paintings adorn the walls. Intricate diagrams lie on the floor. In the hands of the lamas are unfamiliar ritual implements. Look more deeply, and each detail is not mere decoration. All are dharma. All are skillful means to turn the practitioner's mind back to wakefulness. The mandala is the most prominent symbol. In Sanskrit, mandala means circle, yet it is not simply a circle. A mandala is a map of consciousness, a model of the cosmos arranged according to sacred order. At the center there is usually an image of a Buddha or a yidam. Around it are rings of energy, gateways, and concentric protective walls. Gazing at a mandala is like gazing at the structure of our own mind. From the complexity of the outer world, we proceed step by step inward until we touch the still center where true mind is present. Some mandalas are painted on cloth. Some are carved in wood. Some are made from colored sand. Lamas patiently sit for weeks, even months, to sprinkle each tiny grain of sand into an intricate design. When the mandala is complete, instead of preserving it, they erase it and pour the sand into a river. Outsiders are stunned. Why destroy a masterpiece? Yet that very act is a living lesson in impermanence. However perfect beauty may be, in the end it dissolves. Dissolution is not loss. It is a return to the larger flow of the universe. Thanka is a distinctive Tibetan painting, often on silk, that can be hung in monasteries or homes. Its subjects are diverse: a Buddha, a Bodhisattva, a scene from scripture, or an entire mandala. A Thanka is not simply an artwork. It is a picture book of the Dharma. Every detail, every color, every hand gesture contains teaching. When a practitioner visualizes before a Thanka, the mind is led into the yidam's realm as if entering a vivid classroom. The Thanka is both a mirror that reflects the mind and a gateway that opens to wisdom. Beyond mandalas and Thankas, there is the system of ritual implements, objects rich in symbolism. Most important are the vajra and the bell. The vajra symbolizes skillful means, compassion, and indestructible strength. The bell symbolizes wisdom and the emptiness of all phenomena. In ritual, lamas always hold the vajra in the right hand and the bell in the left, using both together. This reminds us that compassion and wisdom must go hand in hand and cannot be separated. With compassion alone and no wisdom, we may become blindly emotional. With wisdom alone and no compassion, we may become cold and distant from people. Only by uniting both can we walk fully on the path to enlightenment. We can say that the entire symbolic system of Tibetan Buddhism is like a special language. It is not a language of letters, but of colors, sounds, and images. Outsiders may find it mysterious or even surreal. For practitioners, each symbol is a reminder and a mirror reflecting the inner mind. When they look at a mandala, they do not see only a beautiful diagram. They see the journey back to the heart. When they contemplate a Thanka, they do not see only images of Buddhas. They see the innate potential for enlightenment within themselves. When they hear the bell's resonance, they do not hear only a sound. They hear a reminder of impermanence and of the emptiness of all things. Through the eyes of mindfulness, these symbols are not foreign. Daily life is also full of symbols. A morning cup of tea can remind us to slow down. A flower in the garden can be a natural mandala that reminds us of balance and harmony. A loved one's smile can be a living thanka that paints compassion right before our eyes. And the sound of a temple bell, or even a phone chime if we listen mindfully, can become a bell of awakening. Mandalas, thankas, the vajra, and the bell are all skillful means. They are like a finger pointing to the moon. Those with the right conditions see the moon. Those who do not understand see only the finger. Our mindfulness practice is the same. Do not stop at form. Let the symbol become a door that leads us inward. A conscious breath, a grounded step, a relaxed smile. These two are mandalas, thankas, and living ritual implements. What matters is that each symbol reminds us to return to ourselves. There is no mandala greater than our own mind. There is no thanka more beautiful than wakefulness in daily life. There is no bell more resonant than mindful breathing. There is also no vajra more unshakable than the power of our own compassion. Looking back, we see that the power of symbols lies in how they awaken wisdom and compassion within us. Instead of merely reading dry doctrines, symbols offer us a direct path of sensing with the eyes, the ears, and the heart. Thanks to this, Tibetan Buddhism becomes a living tradition that touches every sense and goes straight into the mind. And for each of us, it is also a reminder. Let the symbol-rich fabric of our lives become an opportunity to practice mindfulness, to return, to live wakefully in every moment. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, if there is one image regarded as a spiritual pillar, it is the Lama. In Tibetan, Lama means a noble master, one whom we cannot surpass. But a Lama is not merely a teacher of lessons, nor simply a title within a monastery. They are seen as the doorway guiding a student from delusion to awakening, as a bridge between human beings and the Dharma, between the finite and the infinite. A Lama does not only transmit doctrinal knowledge through scriptures, but also gives direct guidance in three dimensions: body, speech, and mind. Body refers to actions and gestures in practice, speech to teachings and mantra recitation, mind to intention and deep contemplation. When a practitioner relies on a Lama, they learn not only from the words of instruction, but also from how the teacher walks, breathes, looks, and smiles. Every gesture of the teacher can become a living lesson, helping the student recognize what true dwelling and wakefulness are. In the Tibetan tradition, the relationship between teacher and student is placed on par with, even above, family ties. Students are advised to rely on the Lama as children rely on parents, as patients rely on physicians, as the lost rely on a light to show the way. This is not to exalt the teacher's person, but to remind the student of the importance of guidance. For the Vajrayana path is filled with powerful methods, from visualization, subtle energies, and mantra to esoteric rites. And without guidance, a practitioner can easily go astray or even fall into wrong views. Tibetans often regard meeting an authentic Lama as the greatest blessing of their lives. In the spiritual life, nothing is more precious than finding a teacher who can transmit both knowledge and the energy of living. It is no coincidence that many Tibetan practitioners, before beginning a specific practice, devote long periods solely to the practice of visualizing the Lama, known as Guru Yoga. In this method, the teacher's image is visualized as merging with the student's mind, so that the student recognizes that the teacher's wisdom and compassion are also the innate potential for enlightenment within themselves. Seen with mindful eyes, this is very close to home. In each person's life, everyone has had a Lama in the broad sense. Perhaps a teacher who taught us letters, a parent who taught us to live, a friend who showed us how to face suffering. They gave us not only knowledge but also faith, courage, and ways to live. And that relationship is like that in Tibet. We rely on them as children on parents, as patients on doctors. In our age of overflowing information, we can learn many things from books and the internet. Yet there is one thing we cannot learn through a screen: transmission by body and mind. A mindful teacher, simply sitting still and breathing steadily, can make us feel at ease. A compassionate teacher, by merely looking into our eyes, can make us feel love. That is why, despite modern tools, the image of the teacher never loses its value. Thus, the Lama is the embodiment of trust and guidance. In mindfulness, we too need to find such a teacher for ourselves, perhaps a monk, a longtime practitioner, or simply a companion who can remind us to return to the breath. More importantly, we need to nourish the inner Lama, the capacity to guide and illuminate ourselves. For in the end, all external teachers only help us recognize the truest teacher in our own heart. In daily life, whenever we lose our way, whenever we are swept up by greed, anger, and delusion, let us remember the Lama's reminder. Return, breathe, smile. A bell, a stick of incense, a short verse, all can be the call of the teacher within us. And when we know how to listen, we will no longer feel alone in the world. The story of the Lama in the Tibetan tradition offers a lesson. On the spiritual path, teacher and student are not two separate entities. The teacher is the mirror, the student is the one who looks in. Looking deeply, we see that the images of teacher and student merge as one. Wisdom and compassion already exist within us, but we need a guiding hand to help us recognize them. Likewise, when we are ripe, we can become someone's teacher, not by title, but by the way we live wakefully. For centuries, Tibetan Buddhism has been intertwined with the image of the Lamas, spiritual teachers who guide communities. But if there is one figure who transcends the borders of Tibet to become a global symbol, it is the Dalai Lama. In Tibetan, Dalai means ocean, and Lama means noble master. Combined, the title evokes a teacher whose compassion and wisdom are as vast as the sea. From the 17th century, when the dual politico-religious system was established, the Dalai Lama was not only the spiritual leader, but also the head of state. In particular, the fifth Dalai Lama affirmed this model, making that position a pillar of both the spiritual and political life of the Tibetan people. In the centuries that followed, despite upheavals, the title of Dalai Lama endured as a living continuation of the compassion of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva whom Tibetans believe the Dalai Lamas embody. In the 20th century, Tibetan history turned a tumultuous page. The 14th Dalai Lama, Sin Iso, was born in a small village and recognized as a reincarnate manifestation in early childhood. He was brought to La, nurtured and trained within the monastic environment, and became the center of his people's faith. Yet fate thrust him into a life few could imagine. Tibet fell under China's control, and in 1959 he was forced to leave his homeland and live in exile in India. At first glance, this seems a tragedy, a spiritual leader losing his country and being compelled to live far from his sacred land. Yet this adversity opened another path. From a land once isolated on the plateau, Tibetan Buddhism, through the Dalai Lama's footsteps, spread across the world. From India, he traveled throughout Europe, America, Asia, and Australia, carrying a message of peace, compassion, and understanding. Tens of thousands of people, Buddhist or not, came to listen. What moves the world is not only his profound knowledge but his loving presence. A gentle smile, eyes both deep and warm, a humble and approachable manner. All this has made the Dalai Lama a rare figure in an era full of conflict. He often says, "My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness." This sentence seems simple, yet it encapsulates the essence of Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhism, compassion and wisdom. In 1989, the Dalai Lama was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. This was not a reward for a political victory, but a recognition of the nonviolent path he has steadfastly pursued. While many places in the world still choose force, he has shown that the greatest power lies not in armies or weapons, but in love and dialogue. Since then, he has become a voice of conscience not only for Tibetans, but for all humanity. Seen through the lens of mindfulness practice, the Dalai Lama is a living proof of turning suffering into opportunity. Losing his homeland, he did not sink into despair, but transformed exile into a doorway through which Tibetan Buddhism stepped out to the world. Pressed by adversity, he did not choose resentment, but chose the path of compassion and reconciliation. Because of this, his message is persuasive, for it arises from genuine experience rather than mere theory. In our own lives, we sometimes face situations that seem tragic: loss, failure, being pushed out of our comfort zone. Yet if we look with mindful eyes, we see that such adversities can also become opportunities to spread understanding and to nourish compassion. The Dalai Lama has taught that what matters is not the circumstance, but how we choose to face it. Today, even in old age, he still travels, still teaches, still smiles. His image reminds us that in a world full of conflict, the path of compassion and nonviolence is not only an ideal, but a practical solution. More importantly, he reminds us that each of us can practice that path in our own daily life. When we restrain anger instead of speaking hurtful words, we are walking the Dalai Lama's path. When we choose to listen instead of arguing, we continue the spirit of compassion. When we smile at a stranger, we sow a seed of peace. If everyone plants such small seeds, the whole world will become a vast field of loving kindness. In the Tibetan Tantric tradition, the breath is not only the exchange of air between body and environment. It is also a subtle bridge between body and mind. It is believed that within each person there is a delicate current of energy called kai, in Sanskrit prana. This energy moves with the breath, flowing through invisible channels in the body, and on these channels are points of energy convergence called chakras. According to this view, there are three principal channels: the left channel, the right channel, and the central channel. The central channel runs straight from the crown of the head to the lower abdomen and is the most refined pathway of energy. When prana enters the central channel, the mind becomes clear and stable. For this reason, Tantra regards regulating prana as an important practice. When the breath is harmonized, the mind returns to clarity. From this arise special breathing methods called pranayama, the regulation of the breath energy. This is not simply inhaling and exhaling. It is breathing with mindfulness and visualization. As practitioners inhale, they visualize the current of prana entering through the nostrils, entering the central channel, and purifying all defilements. As they exhale, they imagine afflictions, anger, greed, and fear dissolving with the breath. Sometimes they imagine the whole body becoming open and spacious, filled with light, in order to recognize their own innate purity. Seen with scientific eyes, this connection is not unfamiliar. The breath directly affects the nervous system. When we breathe fast and shallow, the mind is often agitated. When we breathe deep and slow, the mind settles. Tibetans discovered this relationship very early and turned it into a system of practice with deep spiritual dimensions. In daily life, we can apply this spirit very simply. Whenever we are tense, instead of letting the mind run wild, we can stop, take a deep breath, and exhale slowly. Each breath is a chance to renew ourselves and to shed heaviness. With only 3 mindful breaths, the body can feel lighter and the mind quieter. What matters is not complex technique, but the awareness of returning. A person may never have heard of chakras or energy channels. Yet if they know how to stop and breathe with awareness, they have already entered the true spirit of Tantra. The essence of every practice does not lie in form, but in helping us recognize the purity of our own mind. In mindfulness, the breath is an anchor. When we are swept away by anger and worry, we can return to the breath and breathe like a teacher. Inhaling, we know we are alive. Exhaling, we release all tension. In this way, each breath becomes a small exercise with great transformative power. In Tantra, when the practitioner sits still, the breath is regulated, the channels open, and the mind becomes bright like a mirror. This is the state of unity of body, speech, and mind, where the practitioner no longer feels like a small, limited being but feels merged with the light of the universe's wisdom. In everyday life, we can taste this in a simple way. When we breathe deeply, sense the whole body, and relax our tensions, in that moment we touch the stillness that is already there. Breath and channels are therefore not only Tibetan mystical notions. They are also a very familiar reminder. Each breath is a chance to return. When we know how to breathe with awareness, we no longer lose ourselves in emotional storms. When we know how to breathe with a smile and with each step, we are already living in the spirit of Vajrayana, transforming in each instant, not avoiding but embracing and illuminating. The breath is both the bridge between body and mind and the doorway into freedom. In every moment we can step through that doorway and find ourselves at ease in this very life. as relaxed and steady as the Himalayas standing firm for 1,000 years amid the sky and clouds. In Vajrayana, one of the most important practices is visualization. This is not vague fantasy. It is a powerful means to transform consciousness. When a practitioner sits down under the guidance of a teacher, they visualize themselves as a bodhisattva or a Buddha. Sometimes it is Avalokiteshvara, the embodiment of compassion. Sometimes it is Manjushri, the symbol of wisdom. Sometimes it is Vajrapani, the embodiment of enlightened strength. In those moments, the practitioner no longer sees themselves as a small person full of flaws, bound by greed, anger, and delusion. Instead, they feel that their body is the Buddha's body, their speech the Buddha's speech, their mind the Buddha's mind. Every gesture, every breath, every mantra carries the qualities of awakening. With steady practice, the structure of the mind gradually changes. From inferiority and fear, the practitioner cultivates faith and confidence. From anger and selfishness, the practitioner cultivates compassion and wisdom. Seen through the lens of psychology, this also makes sense. The human mind is strongly influenced by the images it repeats. If we repeatedly visualize negative images, we live in fear. If we regularly cultivate positive images, we become peaceful. In Vajrayana, visualization is a method for transforming the mind at its deepest level, nurturing enlightened images so that, gradually, we become enlightenment itself. Imagine a person who often visualizes themselves as Avalokiteshvara, four-armed, wide-mouthed, with gentle eyes and ears that listen to the cries of the world. Little by little, in daily life, they also practice listening more, opening their heart to others' suffering. Or imagine someone who visualizes themselves as Manjushri, wielding the sword of wisdom that cuts through ignorance. Gradually, when problems arise, they look deeply, see the roots, and are no longer easily swept away by passing emotions. What matters is not that we literally become Avalokiteshvara or Manjushri, but that we awaken the seeds of compassion and wisdom already within us. The Buddha taught that everyone has Buddha nature. Visualization is simply a way to help those seeds sprout more quickly by planting clear, powerful images in the mind. In mindful living, we can practice this spirit too. We do not need to visualize complex images. We can choose a close, everyday symbol. If we want to cultivate loving kindness, we can regularly recall a gentle person we admire, and when anger arises, quietly ask, what would they do? If we want to cultivate wisdom, we can remember a clear-seeing teacher, and whenever we feel confused, contemplate in the light of their example. What we ultimately become is what we nurture in our mind. If we nurture images of hatred, we will gradually become someone filled with hatred. If we nurture images of love, we will become someone filled with love. Visualization, therefore, is not only a Tibetan practice, but a lesson for all of us. Choose to nourish what you wish to become. In a society saturated with negative imagery, from social media and television to everyday talk, consciously cultivating positive images is essential. To visualize becoming a bodhisattva, in the broad sense, is to fill the mind with stories, people, and images that awaken compassion and wisdom. One day, we will find ourselves living like a bodhisattva, not on a lotus throne, but in small, ordinary deeds, listening to a friend, forgiving a mistake, smiling at a stranger. Vajrayana emphasizes that visualization is not make-believe, it is seeing a deeper truth. Compassion and wisdom do not come from outside. They are already within us. When we visualize ourselves as a bodhisattva, we are reminding the mind of what is innate, as if awakening from a long dream. Thus, each of us can practice in this spirit. Sitting quietly, we can breathe and imagine ourselves like a fragrant flower, like a cool river, like a lamp shining. Such images help us live more truly from our deepest nature, peaceful, fresh, clear. This, too, is visualizing becoming a bodhisattva in daily life. In the Tibetan Tantric tradition, there is a special practice regarded as both a great challenge and a great honor, the retreat of 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. It is not merely a period of seclusion. It is a profound spiritual journey in which a person cuts ties with the outer world to return wholly to the inner one. A practitioner entering retreat usually lives in a small room and almost never leaves that space for a long time. All basic needs are arranged in the simplest way. There may be a retreat attendant who provides food, but the practitioner has almost no social contact. Their time is divided among many sessions of practice: mantra recitation, meditation and contemplation, subtle energy work, and yidam visualization. From morning until night, all energy is devoted to cultivation. For many, 3 years is already a long span of life. In the Tibetan tradition, that period is seen as a death and a rebirth within this very life. Upon entering retreat, the practitioner dies to the old world. Friends, prestige, work, and daily habits are left behind. For more than 1,000 days, they live by a completely different rhythm: the rhythm of meditation, mindfulness, and direct contact with true mind. When they emerge, they are regarded as renewed, more mature, clearer, calmer, as if reborn. This story of retreat may sound distant, yet it contains a lesson close to us all. In modern life, not everyone can withdraw for 3 years, but the spirit of retreat can be applied in each moment. It appears when we know how to create small intervals of quiet to return to ourselves. For example, early in the morning, turn off all devices, sit still in a silent room, and simply listen to your breath. That, too, is a kind of retreat. Or in the midst of a busy workday, stop for 5 minutes, close your eyes, release every thought, and focus only on slow, mindful steps. Those 5 minutes can become a precious pause, enough to refresh body and mind. If maintained regularly, we will feel reborn, not after 3 years, but after each moment. In mindfulness practice, we often speak of returning. Modern people tend to run forward, after work, plans, and dreams. The more we run, the farther we drift from ourselves. Retreat is an opportunity to stop, to sit down, to return. When we truly return, we realize that peace is not far away but present in each breath, each step, each smile. If we contemplate deeply, we see that every day can be a retreat. When we drink a cup of tea in mindfulness, when we converse with a loved one and truly listen, when we walk in the park and feel each leaf and every breeze, that, too, is retreat. In those moments, we have stepped away from outer noise and come home to our true dwelling. What matters is not the length of time, but the quality of awareness. Someone may sit in a hermitage for 3 years and, if the mind constantly wanders, still change little. Another person may breathe mindfully for just 5 minutes and, if truly present, taste deep peace. Looking back at Tibet's tradition of retreat, we can see it as a powerful means to train patience, will, and faith. Seen in a broader spirit, it is also a reminder that everyone needs intervals of quiet. Without quiet, life turns into a wearying race. With quiet, we can see the true meaning of what we are doing. So even without a 3-year retreat, we can learn from that spirit. We can tell ourselves, today I will retreat for 10 minutes. And for those 10 minutes there will be no phone, no wandering thoughts, only breathing, only sitting, only being. Those 10 minutes can be a small miracle of rebirth in the midst of ordinary life. The Buddha once said, in a single mindful instant, a person can touch liberation. A 3-year retreat is a means to create countless such instants. But even a single conscious breath is already a doorway to freedom. When we remember the Tibetan tradition of retreat, we can admire the practitioner's resolve. At the same time, we are reminded that we do not need to climb high mountains or shut ourselves away for 3 years to practice. Right in a small home, in an office, in the bustle of city streets, we can still have a hermitage of our own. The breath, mindfulness, the capacity to stop and return. Alongside deep meditative disciplines, there is a vivid realm of practice, ritual. Outsiders often see Tibetan ritual as dazzling, mysterious, even magical: drums, long horns, masked dances, clouds of incense. But if we stop at performance, we miss the essence. For Tibetans, ritual is not to indulge the ego. It is an art of mindfulness in which every sound, movement, and color becomes a doorway into stillness. Imagine a cham mask dance ceremony. In the wide courtyard before a monastery, lamas wear brilliant robes. With masks of protective deities on their heads, they dance step by step to the beat of drums and the sustained notes of long horns. The drums pound like a heartbeat, the horns resonate across the mountains. An outsider sees a vivid show. The practitioner knows that every movement is done in mindfulness. Steps, arms, gaze, everything is meditation. When the Lama spins, it is the turning of the cosmos, the wheel of birth and death. When a fierce mask appears, it embodies afflictive energies being transformed. And when the dance ends, it reminds us that all phenomena are impermanent and dissolve. In other rites, ritual implements carry sacred meaning. The peal of the bell is not mere sound, but a reminder of the emptiness of all dharmas. The strike of the drum is not mere rhythm, but an awakening that shatters the darkness of ignorance. The leaping fire in a homa, fire puja, does not only consume offerings. It symbolizes burning away greed, anger, and delusion in the heart. Every detail, even the smallest, can become a means of practice. Seen with mindful eyes, we notice Tibetan Buddhism's skillfulness, turning all the senses into gateways to the path. Practice is not only closing the eyes in stillness. Opening the eyes is also practice. Not only in silence. Even amid resounding sound there is practice. Ritual is therefore not something distant. It is a reminder that daily life itself can be a ritual. In our own lives, each morning can become a ritual of wakefulness. When we wash our face, instead of hurrying, we can do it mindfully and treat it as a rite of renewal for body and mind. When we drink tea, instead of sipping while scrolling our phone, we can take a quiet sip and treat it as a rite of connection with life. When we walk to the bus stop, instead of rushing and jostling, we can walk in calm and treat it as a rite of meditative steps. The essence of ritual is not elaborate form, but the quality of mindfulness. A cham dance may be complex, but without mindfulness, it is only performance. Conversely, a simple gesture, exhaling with a smile, if fully present, is already a sacred rite. This reminds us that we do not need to go to Tibet and attend ceremonies to touch this spirit. We can create small daily rituals, setting the phone down before sleep, taking 3 breaths before beginning work, smiling when meeting a loved one. Small but steady, such rituals can transform life and bring us back to the peace already within. Tibetan Buddhism has preserved this spirit for millennia so that, whenever a bell rings in a monastery, the listener is awakened not only by sound, but by their own mind. And we, today, in the modern rhythm of life, can receive that lesson. Let life itself become a ritual of mindfulness. When eating, only eat. When walking, only walk. When breathing, only breathe. In each such moment, we live like a Tibetan practitioner in ordinary life, with a mind peaceful, clear, and steady like the Himalayas. In Tibetan Buddhism, one special belief, and a tradition that has nourished the community's spiritual strength for centuries, is the tulku system, the lineage of reincarnate lamas. According to this view, when a great lama passes away, he does not completely leave the world. With a compassionate vow, he may be reborn in the body of a child to continue his mission of liberating beings. Tibetans believe this rebirth is not random. It is the result of Bodhicitta, the vow to return to help all beings. For many, death is an ending. Within the tulku tradition, death is a change of form. The compassionate teacher never disappears. He merely dons a new body to keep teaching and guiding. When a lama passes, the whole community grieves. Yet instead of despair, they begin a new journey, searching for the teacher's reincarnation. Search parties travel far and wide, inquiring, observing, and testing to recognize the signs. Sometimes a small child in a remote village suddenly recognizes objects that belong to the deceased master. Sometimes a boy or girl speaks or acts exactly like the former teacher. When the child is confirmed, the community bursts into joy. The teacher has returned. This faith has sustained Tibetans for centuries. It keeps them from falling into hopelessness when they lose a spiritual leader. They know that compassion and wisdom do not vanish. They only change appearance. The teacher may no longer stand before them in a familiar form, but that compassionate energy is still present, if only we know how to recognize it. From the perspective of mindfulness, we can regard the tulku tradition as a profound metaphor. In life, noble values, compassion, clarity, love, are like a flowing current. When a teacher, a parent, or a friend leaves us, we may feel sorrow. But if we look closely, we see their beautiful qualities continue to live on in us and in later generations. That energy does not disappear, it only changes form. When we remember a departed loved one, we may see them in a grandchild's smile, in the words of someone they once taught, in habits we ourselves have inherited. So it is with compassion and wisdom. They never vanish. They continually seek to manifest in new forms. The tulku tradition simply emphasizes this with a vivid image. A lama returns in the body of a child. Yet even outside that tradition, the lesson holds its full value. Trust that energy is indestructible and that love is always present. When we practice mindfulness, we can experience this rebirth in each moment. Each time we release anger, we are reborn as a new person. Each time we choose loving speech instead of harsh words, we are reborn as someone different. Each time we recognize impermanence and learn to cherish the present moment, we are reborn into a deeper life. We do not need to wait for death for rebirth to occur. In every breath and every step, we can change form. From a communal perspective, the tulku tradition is also a way to sustain collective faith. When a teacher departs, without this faith, people may fall into confusion and lose direction. With tulku, continuity is assured and the connecting thread is never cut. This spiritual strength has helped Tibetans remain steady through many historical upheavals. In modern life, we can learn this spirit as well. When a teacher, a leader, or an inspiring person leaves, it is not the end. We can continue to nourish what they left behind. In this way, they are reborn in our actions and in our hearts. If we live according to their kind teachings, we ourselves become embodiments of that love and wisdom. The tulku tradition is therefore not only a mystical Tibetan story, but a universal lesson. All beautiful values can continue and never truly vanish. Our responsibility is to become that continuation by living mindfully and by planting and nurturing compassion and wisdom in our daily lives. With this understanding, we no longer fear loss. We know that our teacher, our loved ones, and even ourselves are only changing form. What matters is the energy we leave for the world, craving or compassion, selfishness or wisdom. Those very energies are the true embodiments that appear in this world. Therefore, when we breathe mindfully, when we smile with kindness, when we act with wisdom, we are also performing a small rebirth. Through such rebirths, we help renew life and continue the ever-flowing stream of compassion and wisdom. Within the treasury of Tibetan Buddhist teachings, there are two concepts like twin jewels that support the entire path. They are Bodhicitta and Emptiness. If we have only one of the two, we easily fall into imbalance. When both are joined, they become wings that carry us across the ocean of suffering to the shore of awakening. Bodhicitta is first of all a vow. It is not merely to seek liberation for oneself, but to attain enlightenment in order to help all beings be freed. Bodhicitta expands the heart to boundlessness so that we are no longer trapped in a narrow self. Whenever we give rise to compassion, wishing to share joy and shoulder others' suffering, we are planting the seed of Bodhicitta. For Tibetans, cultivating Bodhicitta is a prerequisite for every practice. Without it, all rituals, meditations, and mantras become dry. Emptiness belongs to wisdom. It is the deep seeing that all phenomena lack fixed self-nature. Everything arises through conditions and ceases when conditions fall apart. From a falling leaf and a passing breeze to this body and these emotions, all are impermanent. Nothing exists forever or independently. Seeing emptiness, we cling less and suffer less. We no longer try to hold what must dissolve, nor resent what has only come together through conditions. If we have Bodhicitta without emptiness, compassion can become blind. We may be pulled into others' suffering and lose clarity about how to help. If we have emptiness without Bodhicitta, wisdom can become cold. Seeing that all is empty, we may grow indifferent and cease to care. Therefore, Tibetan Buddhism always emphasizes holding both. When Bodhicitta and emptiness are present together, we are like a bird with two wings. Compassion opens the heart and connects us with all beings. Wisdom reveals the nature of things and keeps us from being misled by emotion. Compassion warms wisdom and makes it humane. Wisdom steadies compassion and keeps it from blindness. This balance is what brings a practitioner to liberation. In daily life, we can practice this simply. When we see someone suffering and wish to help, that is Bodhicitta. At the same time, we contemplate that their suffering arises from many conditions such as circumstances, habits, and perceptions. We do not carry their pain as an unchanging burden. We see it as a process that can change. With this vision, we help without being overwhelmed. We love and still remain steady. When we ourselves enter hardship, with only emptiness, we may console ourselves that everything is impermanent and will pass. Without Bodhicitta, however, we may become indifferent and lose motivation to live positively. With only Bodhicitta, we may worry and grasp. How to overcome this? How to avoid suffering? When both are combined, we can accept impermanence and at the same time nourish the vow to live well so that we can continue to serve others. A beautiful image often used is a bird flying over the sea of suffering. One wing is Bodhicitta, the other wing is emptiness. With only one wing, the bird flounders and falls. Only when both are balanced can it fly firmly, pass through storms, and cross the vast ocean to the other shore. So it is with our life. To find peace, we need a great heart of compassion and a deep wisdom. In mindfulness, we can nurture these twin jewels with each breath. Inhaling, we are aware that we live for ourselves and for all beings. Exhaling, we release all clinging and see the impermanence and selflessness of all things. In this way, each breath becomes a union of Bodhicitta and emptiness. Each step and each smile can also carry these two jewels. Looking back at the Tibetan tradition, we see why it always centers on these values. Rituals may differ and methods may be many, yet the core is compassion and wisdom. This reminds us today that in all learning and practice, we should never forget to cultivate Bodhicitta and emptiness. They are the compass and the wings that help us cross the ocean of suffering to the shore of freedom and peace. When we look back over the long journey of Tibetan Buddhism, we see a scene stretching from the snowy peaks of the Himalayas to the bustling cities of the West. From majestic monasteries hidden in the clouds like Patala, Sera, and Drepung, Tibetan Buddhism has gone beyond geographic borders to become part of the shared spiritual heritage of humankind. Today, in Paris, New York, Sydney, or Tokyo, we can find study centers and meditation communities following the Tibetan tradition. This shows that the spiritual flame kindled on the windswept plateau has lit hearts across all 5 continents. Its appeal comes not only from the vivid colors of Mandalas or the cham dance, but from the core message Tibetan Buddhism shares, the path of awakening. For whether Theravada, Mahayana, or Vajrayana, all meet at this common point. Each tradition has its own language and methods, yet all point in one direction. Live wakefully, return to the peaceful true mind, and cultivate compassion and wisdom. Today's world is full of upheaval, conflicts, environmental crises, insecurity, and personal life. Precisely in this context, the spirit of Tibetan Buddhism offers a precious reminder. We do not need to seek happiness in faraway places or wait for a deity to rescue us. Begin with the breath itself, with the mind itself. When we breathe mindfully, when we nourish Bodhicitta, when we see emptiness, then wherever and whenever we are, we can dwell at ease. Perhaps this is why many in the modern West turn to Tibetan Buddhism as a source of comfort and guidance. They find not only profound philosophy, but also concrete practices: chanting, visualization, meditation, and mindful breathing. These practices help them overcome anxiety and regain balance in a busy life. More importantly, they evoke an insight. Human beings are not separate. We are intimately connected, sharing one great stream of life. From the lens of mindfulness, Tibetan Buddhism is not merely an ancient tradition, but a mirror that illuminates our present life. It reminds us that anyone can practice right where they are. We need not climb high mountains or don monastic robes. In every moment of ordinary life, we can touch that spirit. When we listen to a loved one with our whole heart, that is compassion. When we clearly see an anger and let it go, that is wisdom. When we breathe in mindfulness, that is Vajrayana in daily life. We have journeyed from the indigenous Bon religion to the first seeds of the Dharma, from the arrival of Padmasambhava to the great translation movement, from the power of symbols to distinctive practices such as subtle energies, visualization, and retreat. We have also seen the role of the lamas, of the Dalai Lama, and of the two precious jewels, Bodhicitta and Emptiness. All these pieces come together to form a tradition both rich and deep. Yet gathered up, the message remains simple: live wakefully and with love. That is also the message of Chan Neem Jy. Each day, plant a seed of compassion and wisdom in yourself. Perhaps that seed is as small as a mindful breath, a smile, a kind word. But if we persist in planting, one day the garden of our mind will be filled with the fruits of peace. And just as Tibetan Buddhism has stretched from a remote plateau to the whole world, so too the peace in our own hearts can radiate outward, bringing calm to those around us, and, further still, to the whole human community.